Now, I personally am a huge fan of the idea, at least, of getting paid weekly distributions from income-producing ETFs that utilize short duration option strategies and that can pay investors like you and I more consistently than traditional monthly paying or even quarterly paying ETFs and stocks. Now, I personally am super interested in that strategy because for me, I'm currently building out a long-term portfolio that I'm hopefully going to use sometime in the future, maybe 2 years, 4 years, or 6 years down the road to pay for all my expenses and then some. So especially for investors like myself, buying into income-producing assets that pay more consistently can definitely help with cash flow constraints, especially if we're looking to use this income to pay for bills and expenses in the future. Now, that's one of the main reasons that over the last several years, I've took a liking to monthly paying dividend stocks and ETFs and hold plenty of them throughout my long-term portfolio. But just as of recently in the last year or so, there's plenty of brand new ETFs that now pay out income to investors on a weekly frequency, which is sort of blowing some investors' minds. Now, is getting paid income on a weekly basis necessarily a good or bad thing? Well, that's not even the question that we're going to go through in today's video. The bigger question is which of these weekly paying ETFs is best to invest into and what have they all done at least so far historically? So in today's video, we're going to answer exactly that. We're going to go through 8 different weekly paying ETFs that have all been trading for at least a little while now and all have very interesting strategies and best of all pay income on a weekly basis. So if you're an income-oriented investor that is interested or already hold on to some of these, either way, make sure to stick around, drop a like down below, and let's get right into it. If you are a dividend investor who wants to level up your portfolio, you need to be tracking your dividend income consistently. And that's why I created the perfect dividend tracker that I've used to scale my dividend income up to all-time highs over the last year. Now, along with this dividend tracker, you're also going to receive my A to Z dividend investing ebook, which shows you how I personally started from $0 several years ago to now where I earn over $7,500 per month in dividends. So if you want this tracker and the ebook, go to the first link down below in my description and grab it today. Now let's go through each of these 8 weekly paying ETFs, explain what they are, how they work, how much they pay as far as distributions go, and of course, most importantly maybe, what has their performance been so far since inception. Now, the first weekly paying ETF is coming from Defiance ETFs. They do offer a few of these. We're talking about WDTE or the S&P 500 Enhanced Options and 0DTE Income ETF. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys are already familiar with how these ETFs work, at least for the most part, but basically they write short duration options, which allows these ETFs to at least potentially be able to generate a ton of income. And this is even comparing these to other higher yielding ETFs, at least traditionally. Now it says right here, WDTE is the first put-right ETF on the S&P 500 using daily options, so like I said, very short duration options. Then it says 0DTE to seek enhanced yield for investors, and this is of course paid weekly. Now this ETF is offering almost a 19% distribution rate. Of course, it does pay out weekly on a distribution frequency. But most importantly, especially for the context of this video, we want to try to figure out, at least historically speaking, which of these ETFs has performed best, at least since inception. So when it comes to WDTE, since inception, this ETF has around 16.38% total return. So this is of course price return plus all the distributions included. Now the next ETF that pays out weekly also is going to be another Defiance ETF, QQQY or the NASDAQ 100 Enhanced Options and 0DTE Income ETF. Now this ETF offers a much larger distribution rate, almost 39%, pays weekly, and this ETF, instead of using the S&P 500, utilizes the NASDAQ. Now, I've said this before and I'll of course say it again, whenever you're buying into any ETF, understand what the underline is, understand the strategy, and throughout my channel, I do go through all these different names in much more detail. But in this video, like I said, we're just going to be sort of skimming all 8 of these weekly payers and seeing what they have to offer, at least for the most part. Now, QQQY says the first put-right ETF using daily options 0DTE to seek enhanced yield for investors, again paid weekly. Now, as far as total return for QQQY goes, we're talking 16.44%, so again, a positive total return, although over multiple time frames, it's been negative. Another weekly payer from Defiance is IWMY. This is, of course, the Russell or the R2000 Enhanced Options and 0DTE Income ETF, and this one offers a distribution rate of over 50%. This one is the first put-right ETF that uses the Russell 2000 using daily options to seek enhanced yield for investors, and again, paid out weekly. Now this ETF offers a massive distribution rate, as I showed you guys, and over different time frames, it's offered a negative total return, but since inception, we're talking almost 18%. So interestingly enough, so far, all these weekly payers out of the last 3 we talked about so far, all offer a positive total return, which I say is interesting because a lot of investors call all these sort of things yield traps, but at least so far, they've all offered a positive green total return for investors. Now to get into some more weekly pairs, this is from the provider Roundhill Investments, of course, XDTE or the S&P 500, 0DTE covered call strategy ETF. This ETF utilizes a synthetic covered call strategy that seeks to provide current income on a weekly basis while also providing exposure to the price return of the S&P. Now XDTE is one that I've had my eyes on. I don't think I own any of this one yet. I do own the next one we're going to talk about though, so stay tuned. But this ETF also utilizes a very short duration option strategy, as you guys can see right here, and offers around 63% as far as distribution rate. But most importantly, we have to look at performance because that's going to be key, especially for the context of today's video. Since inception, this ETF has offered around 18% almost of total return, which is not bad whatsoever, again offering a green total return for investors. Now, this is one that I personally do own in my portfolio in a small fashion, but I am planning on grabbing more of it just because I really like what I've been seeing so far. But that's besides the point. XDTE utilizes synthetic cover call strategy that seeks to provide current income on a weekly basis while also providing exposure to the price return of the Innovation 100 index. Now, I like this one because the Innovation 100 index is an index that I like to have more exposure to, but with this cover call strategy, this ETF offers, again, a ton of income weekly. The distribution rate for XDTE is around 104%, but as far as performance goes, let's see what this one's offered, around 17-18% once again, which isn't bad whatsoever, especially for something that's going to offer as much income potential as this one. Now lastly, when it comes to Roundhill, we have RDTE. This is the small cap version of the bunch. This one offers a 34.52% distribution rate. And as far as performance goes, looking at the performance of RDTE, we're at almost a 9% performance. But again, these ETFs have not been trading all that long, so we're really going to have to get a better feel about how all these ETFs trade once we see some real turbulence in the market or see a very, very sustained bull market. Now, the last two weekly pairs are, of course, brought to us by YieldMax. We have YieldMax and, of course, YMag. Both ETFs are extremely popular because of their total returns over multiple time frames and, of course, the fact that they offer a massive amount of income paid out on a weekly basis. Now, YieldMax is the YieldMax Universe Fund of Option Income ETFs, offering a 53% distribution rate. Now, as far as performance goes for YieldMax, we're talking 25.7% since inception, so not bad whatsoever. Again, an ETF that I personally have heard a lot of investors sort of call out as a yield trap, but at least so far since inception, it has offered a nice positive total return and offered nice weekly income just as of recent. Now, YMag also offers weekly income, of course. This is the Magnificent 7 Fund of Option Income ETFs. This ETF offers exposure to names like Apple, Amazon, names like Google, Meta, etc., etc. The Magnificent 7, of course. A 27.6% distribution rate and weekly income that's been rolling in pretty consistently. But more importantly, what has the performance been for YMag? It's been pretty good, 35.26%, which to be fair, I think is the best performance compared to all the other weekly pairs that we went through, at least in today's video. And I think that just goes to show that if you focus on the underlying, maybe or maybe not, of course, depending on what happens within the market, maybe that could be the key here. And maybe it's not even as important to focus on the weekly income aspect, but really to focus on the underlying strategy and the holdings that these weekly ETFs track. Now, out of all these names, just in my humble opinion, and of course, this is just my opinion, I could be wrong, but YMag, YMax, and names like QDTE are probably some of my favorite weekly pairs, at least that I've came across as of right now. Now, to be fully transparent, like I said, I only own a few shares of QDTE as of right now, just because in my long-term portfolio, I really haven't needed much exposure to weekly income. I'm pretty much okay with quarterly or monthly as of right now, but in the future, I will continue to watch a lot of these weekly pairs, and honestly, I have plans on grabbing more of them for my portfolio. So now that we went through 8 different weekly paying ETFs that all, at least as of right now, offer a nice positive total return and weekly income to investors, I lastly, most importantly, have a question for you down below. Out of all 8 of the ETFs we talked about, what is your number one favorite that you personally either hold or would hold? Let me know the ticker symbol in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to please drop a like on it and subscribe for more future content like this. Thanks as always for stopping by, and if you are interested in investing, make sure to check out these recent videos I posted right here.